Randy Gregory conversation. Will he have a breakout year? Randy Gregory always been that breakout player. It's just the fact that Roger Goodell and all of the other nuances as it relates to the NFL rulings and policies and things like that, he just never could really grab hold to that position because of the fact that he was suspended or played a half of a year and got resuspended and things like that, or Roger Goodell let the kid play and then we get to the playoffs and the suspension now is into effect when you're in the playoff, right? So we hear all of those things with Randy Gregory, and yeah, it's kind of crass of the NFL. We've seen other players do far more nefarious things, not going to mention names, but they were able to get out there to play. Now that Randy Gregory got all of his affairs in order, and on top of that, the NFL allow you to do a certain thing with a plant, that most of these nefarious things, or you can argue and say that they are not nefarious, just that the NFL rulings were so archaic or old in a sense and not in touch with modern day stuff. So with modern day law, and you had all of these things with Randy Gregory on the field. Would he play? Is he motivated to play? Is he not motivated to play? You had all of these things added into one, and you got a guy that never been productive on a consistent level. We knew without a shot of a doubt that Randy Gregory can get upfield, make sacks, get tackles, be decent against the run, and on top of that, he's a guy that played with high motor, believe it or not. So he didn't show any of the things that a lot of people were lamenting that a certain plant will do in a sense. And of course, you have your pundits like Stephen A. Smith and some other guys that like to sully and denigrate a kid because of his decisions. And I get it. 9 times out of 10, majority of the fan base is always lean toward the owner, and that's just how the rulings and stuff goes into play. A lot of times people don't look at the player because they're looking at the money. They say, man, how dare you throw away your career for a plan, or how dare you throw away this because of that, not looking at the entire picture, but only looking at the money or the remuneration side of it. And people will say, okay, these are the things that makes this player unformidable for said rulings of the NFL. My thing is, on one end, you can argue that point. On the other end, you can say, all right, let's change the rulings. Well, nevertheless, the rulings are changed now. Randy Gregory is out there. When you look at his film, you can see that the guy got a high motor. You can bend that shoulder down so low and get to the quarterback and make the quarterback hit you. You know what? Now that we have Dan Quinn, one can argue and say, well, we had defensive coordinators before, but I just flat out believe a defensive coordinator with the ability to identify with his players, get in touch with his players, hands-on coach, you can get a lot more done from those type of mindsets from a coach. And on top of that, when you think about it, just hear me out, and I know a lot of people will say, well, Dan Quinn, after he left Seattle Seahawks land, he really didn't do anything. Well, sometimes less is more. Sometimes when you have too much on your plate, you do not perform to the level of activity that you did when you didn't have that food on your plate or those responsibilities. That's why they say less is more. So now Dan Quinn can focus only on the defensive front. And in a pinch, if he need to focus on the linebackers, which is part of the defensive front, he can do that. And if he need to circumvent and say, okay, we're going to install this particular defense, he don't have to worry about the offense now. He don't have to worry about payroll. He don't have to worry about people going to him talking about their time on the field, and he don't have to go back and forth with the owner, general manager. He can now just focus on defense. I want to tell people this too. Just put this into your mental. So many people are so quick to point out what he did over there in Atlanta and say, well, he was horrible. Well, I come here to tell you, yeah, You can look at that defense and say, yeah, it was horrible. But look at this part of it too. Did he have George Edwards there with him as well? Did he have Mike McCarthy as well? So every team is different. I don't think that Atlanta Falcons had Kellen Moore, although those guys, Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy, are on the offensive side of the coin. But this team is different. That's what makes a team different. Don't try to put everything and say to yourself, well, this is what they did over there. This is what they did over here. It's not the same. Michael Jordan wasn't the same from Chicago to Washington Wizards, whatever that team he was playing for over there. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes it takes movement. Sometimes a new area. Sometimes less, like I said, is more. Right? So I come here to tell everybody, pump the brakes, look at the reality of it, and say, man, this guy don't have to worry about the off-field scenarios of being suspended. He can focus in, get ready for training camp, ball the you-know-what off, and when the season roll around, he'll be there, ready to play, ready to ball. And that's what I look at when I see a Randy Gregory, a person that's willing to put it out there and say, hey, I'm the leader now. And how dare you play other guys in front of me last year? Don't you know that put more fuel to my fire? And I'm going to showcase to the world that I belong here, that I am the leader of this team, and I'm going to lead by example, by productions. All of those things play a major role, not a minor. And I really think that Randy Gregory, as well as D-Law, as well as Brant Urban, as well as Osa, as well as Neville Gallimore, as well as Chauncey, all of these guys that's on the defense that can go on and on, Terrell Basham, Dorrance Armstrong, all of these guys, they're looking at it like, man, we got to get out here and we got to showcase to the world that we belong. But the good thing and the glory of it is that nobody's given their position. Nobody. So you got to fight for it, claw for it. And I believe that Randy Gregory will have a better year, better season at the end of the day. Post me your thoughts, post me your concerns down below. I'm just saying, breakout year. Don't worry about saying that, because he will absolutely showcase and shine. That's all he did when he had the time, right? So he got the time now. So let's get this thing going the best way possible. My name is Law Nation. I really appreciate you all for tuning in and joining this conversation. That's been my time. I really thank you all for yours. And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. Let's go, Cowboy Nation. Let's go. We out. Peace.